Welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. I'm Joel Goldberg. Hope that you are all enjoying your Wednesday. This week is flying by. I hope it's flying by. Maybe it's going slowly, but it feels like we're starting to reemerge a little bit. I even got out and played golf yesterday, which makes it sound like I'm some regular golf. I play like once or twice a year. What I figured out was that I'm just as bad during a pandemic as I was beforehand, but it was just good to get out and get a little bit of fresh air. And so, starting to see some of, I think, life come back to normal a little bit, and then maybe some things will be changed forever, and we'll continue to see how that goes, how it affects business, how it affects our communities. A big shout out to Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you, for being the title sponsor of this show. Couldn't do it without them. And thanks to our friends up at KC Cattle Company. They say they'll be reloading on their website by Friday. So if you're looking for some of that Wagyu beef, they're up in Weston, Missouri, veteran owned and operated, led by former U.S. Army Ranger Patrick Montgomery. We love it here at the Goldberg House. So check them out. They deliver also to all 50 states, KC Cattle Company. And you can also check out their social media for updates on what's going on with them. Had so many different guests on this show talking about leadership and business and the way the times have changed. And my guest today has certainly been seeing all of that. And I'm really interested to get the perspective on a member of our community who was named to the 2019 Women Who Mean Business class. Happy to be joined right now by Thalia Cherry, Cherry Holdings and Cherry Sports Gear. Thalia, how is it going since you and I think we certainly met in this pandemic world. So I think we met virtually maybe a month ago. How are things going as of today?
Right. Well, we're seeing some peaks. So the last couple of weeks, I felt like we were kind of almost back to our same system of priorities with a lot of contracts we had previously, kind of reigniting those. So pretty excited about that. I really spent a lot of the time really working more on strategy and looking at where maybe some new potential contracts were. Because people were so accessible, I think it was beneficial. So we spent a lot of time concentrating on that and creating content in regards to our products that we provide as well.
Well, I know this, you know this. I think it's actually true in almost every profession. You don't have to be a media guy, a podcast host, a television announcer to understand, hopefully, that content is king. So you just brought up creating content. Do you view that right now as the same as before? Is it more important than ever? What's your take on content right now?
I think content in itself was always going to be important. Typically, though, when you're in the midst of what we traditionally were in, though, you didn't have as much time to create, I think, quality content as much. So just much more concentrated. But I would say, too, I remember looking at our content calendar for the month of March, which was completely scrapped because everything in it was related to Big 12, the Final Fours, all sports related. And although that is our emphasis as being a sports company, we really had to be sensitive to the time and the season and what was transpiring with the COVID. So just to look at that and reflect on that, and then know that we have to create almost a nimble kind of structure of content now, just because you want your consumer base or just any entity affiliated with our company to have not only who we are and what we are in this moment, but who we've always been and our relationship really investing in the community, but why that's more important now than ever.
So let's tell the audience, and then we'll get a little bit more into that content creation and what you do in the sports world. And you know as well as I do right now, there is no sports world, at least as we knew it, and we're all hoping that reemerges quickly. Certainly from a business standpoint, I think for probably both of us, but just from a societal standpoint, I mean, we got some people that aren't sports fans. I even hear from saying, I really wouldn't mind having it on, actually. We're all missing, something fresh, something live. And whether that's theater arts or sports or all of the above, movies, we don't have any of that right now. For the folks that are watching right now or that'll be watching later, tell us a little bit about Cherry Sports.
Yeah, so I started a sports and clothing company in 2012. I am the recipient of a college athletic scholarship along with my 7 older brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
And so I like to think that the strategies I learned as a child to like even defend myself being the youngest helped me to be extremely, I think, creative, but also highly competitive. Just to probably garner even attention from my parents, probably started there. And then building that into kind of our business and our model. So we design products. We have our own manufacturing products that are called the cherry lining collections. And so we manufacture on an annual basis 15 to 20 different products that we feel like are trendsetters. And then we also provide design and content and innovation around printing of products that are also some of the major brands for universities and colleges, as well as professional athletes.
So, what element of all of this do you like the most? And I love, in a business standpoint, talking to the former athletes because there's just a competitiveness that is unique to sports and it translates beautifully into business or whatever aspect of business you're in. There's just, I hear from so many former athletes that say they miss being on the field, they miss being on the court, and this is, what they learned and how they were molded during those athletics have really led to who they are today.
Mm-hmm.
So let me start with that. You talked about being the youngest of what, eight children. By the way, I'm sure that many of your siblings would say, "Oh, come on, Thalia, she's the baby. She got all right." I mean, so your perspective maybe that's the sibling rivalry type of stuff. But you talked about how that helped mold you a little bit. How about your background in sports and where that's taken you to today?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm proud to say, like, we were the first softball team at the age of 15 to actually go to nationals. And I think it was the most humbling experience. So out of the Kansas City region, we were the stuff, right? So we went, played nationals. It was actually in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. And then we realized our realities. We realized that teams that are from the West Coast played all year long.
Mm-hmm.
And we only played in the summer. So I think it was eye opener to knowing how important it was to compete at just different levels, but not only just like within the sports arena, but also just as an individual. Just whether it was academics or whatever I was aspiring to actually be greater or stronger in. And so for me, I still miss getting. I played the two sports I played in college were volleyball and softball. I still miss it completely. I think the thing that really was another transformative moment is when I went to college. I played left field when I was in high school. And then when I went to college, my coach asked me to try out catching. And at first I was fearful, right? Because the ball is coming in flying in really fast and my eyes blink a lot. And so I was like, this will never probably work. I found that that's where I blossomed. I think it really resonates on who I am today because I literally dare somebody to steal a base. Like I I think brought a fire in me that I didn't even know was there. That obviously my coach saw at the time. And so we did extremely well. And so my roommate actually was the pitcher, so there was already a bond there. But I think that heightened my ability to understand how that was going to translate later to business.
So that element of being a catcher, which is a huge leadership position too, that leadership and that competitiveness of not wanting anyone to steal from you, so to speak, that's translated into the business world.
100%. 100%. I find that when there are opportunities or projects or any new customer bases that we really want to seek and go after to just expand our growth in our portfolio, is for me, it's never been a case of like what we couldn't do, but it was always, even when there was maybe the initial no, I've always found another avenue to approach it. So I think that's what it really taught me. I mean, yes, you may steal one base, but you won't steal a second one. So how do I kind of regroup? How do I make sure that I have the right measurements in place? How do I make sure we have the right infrastructure? And how do we make sure that we can go after that aggressively? So that's, I mean, I've used those tools, those models. I think it's carried through in everything that I've done in life. And it continues in our business too.
So doesn't that really apply right now as the word of the month or the last 2 months to me has been pivot, and that ability to be nimble, and just what you were talking about from softball too. Yeah, you might get me once, but I'm going to make my adjustments.
Right.
How much of a period of adjustment has this been for you?
From our company standpoint, our peak seasons are March through October, November. Depending on if the Royals are winning, that could take us a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then with the Chiefs winning, that helps us leave in January, February, usually typically our leaner months. Typically December to January, we as a team actually take off during that period. We do that for a couple of reasons. One, it's an opportunity to really decompress, regroup, and really strategize for the next year. So initially, the first 2 weeks when with the stay-home orders, I was like, "Oh, this is just like during a holiday break, right?" So this really wasn't that major adjustment at the time. And then as that kind of started to extend, I wanted to be and lead our team and being the most thoughtful with our time and the most productive with our time. And so that's when we started to figure out how do we continue to create content and really great content, but also how do we continue to produce product with limitations within the city, and then how do we also start to look at and forecast in the future what this will look like. I really had a lot of heart to hearts and conversations with key leaders, whether they're athletic directors or presidents of universities, just to really keep a pulse on what even the fall season will look like, because it's going to be very direct impact for our business. And so I just, for us, the pivoting has been around. We're still true to our model. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
really left our model because it was working and it's our niche. It's where we're the most powerful. But maybe are there additional portfolio addings that we might have? So
Mm-hmm.
one of which is not traditionally within our portfolio products, has been mask. So our company will actually supply and produce masks for the universities that we currently already serve, based on a lot of conversations around them. But initially, that was not a direction that I could foresee, but it's important and it's important for our customer base.
I think there's something there, and you said a little something that I've been thinking about and even talking about in some of my virtual speeches, which is this is a time to try new things. So in that case, you never envisioned that you would be doing masks, but understanding that things aren't today what they were 2, 3, 4 months ago, but you talked about your niche still being true to who you are. Because one of the things that I'm seeing right now is people are getting out there and trying things, but then they're almost getting outside of themselves. And I don't mean this whole stay in your lane thing. I think you should explore other lanes, but don't forget what got you to where you're at. Don't forget about the foundation of what has made you successful. So it sounds to me like, yeah, okay, fine, let's go and do some masks. We didn't ever think we'd be doing masks before, but our clientele does need that. But ultimately, you have to maintain your identity. So what is the identity at Cherry Sports?
Sporty fashion. So one of the things that we discovered in the early stages was really this void around sports and clothing in relation to women. So what we found a lot in the market was that a lot of companies were taking what was typically unisex and then kind of slapping that on a woman's
Mm.
shirt, right? So it wasn't really in the context and design of what women was found appealing. And so that is not only for the product offerings, but also the quotes or the sayings or the styles of the products themselves. So we hit hard a lot of organizations and national organizations around like women empowerment and wording that really would resonate for women. That was a crossover between sports, fashion, but also just empowerment, and how we could help elevated people through the work that we were doing within our company.
When you say that, it makes me think. I can't tell you how many times I'll end up with some kind of T-shirt, sports related T-shirt. It doesn't have to be Royals, by the way, either. It could be from who knows where. And what is it? What ends up happening if I give it to my wife or my daughter? If it's a unisex thing, it's either not going to be worn or they wear it to bed. That there's no joy in that. So it sounds to me like you guys have figured that out. Speaking of women that we know, I said you're a woman who means business, but I've got to give a little bit of a shout out to our friend Erin Folk, because without Erin, you and I would not have met. So I wanted to thank her for doing that, and she made sure, as a good marketing person, to say you do know how to pronounce her name, right? And because how many people for your whole life have messed up your name? And she even sent me audio to make sure, which is I'm not giving Aaron a hard time. Like that is a broadcaster's dream is when we are handed not just the phonetic pronunciation, but if you get the voice too, and you're like, okay, I got it. I already had it because that article in the Kansas City Business Journal, had it phonetically spelled out. But
Yeah.
how many times I should have got to this right away just because I'm guessing that you have a name that has been mispronounced since pretty close to the day that you were born. What are the different variations you hear of
Um,
Thalia, and give me the meaning behind the name?
so yeah, so yes, Aaron, and I love it because so many of my friends will correct everyone else. So I think because you almost get kind of numb and immune when it's your name and people misspell it, that in order for you to correct people over and over, it's just easier to let them go ahead and say the name.
Mm-hmm.
I do often remind people they can just call me Cherry for branding purposes,
Yeah.
which is a lot more simplified. And a lot of the coaches, athletic directors completely do that. So Thala origin is a Greek origin, and it means happiness. So my father was in the Korean War. The story that they told me is that when he was at war, there must have been something in the area that actually had the spelling of Thala. And he was adamant when he came back from the Korean War that it was important to name me Thala. So I'm not even sure if my dad or mom knew actually the origin or the meaning. But I think it's definitely been a guiding force in my personality, who I am, my energy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly hear that in the conversations that we've had. You have that smile on your face. You're upbeat. We now know that you are very competitive, and so there's that side of it too. So I got to ask you about this award and this honor that you got in February, which is pretty cool. 2020 Ebony Power 100 list. I mean, no big deal. There were two Kansas Cityans on there, Thalia Cherry and
Who's that other
what's
guy?
that other
Who's
guy's
the
name?
guy? I don't even know.
Mahomes, something like that. Mahomes, something or other.
He's a
First
fun.
time, Aaron was telling me that it was the first time in the 75-year history that someone from Kansas City has won the award, and now it was both of you together. How special, how meaningful. I mean, I know some awards are just like awards are awards, and they're always great. I mean, you talk about the branding and get the Cherry name out there.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's what awards are for, and sometimes I think that they could be overrated, sometimes they could be underrated, but I've got to think that for this and the people on that list, I was looking through it, I mean, we're talking some major power players here. So what did this mean to you?
Yeah, like my friend John Legend, he's on there.
Yeah,
My friend now, right?
yeah.
um, so what an incredible way to like just start off this year. Like, so when so many people are saying, "Oh, 2020 has been horrible," I mean, I'm just reminded of how amazing to be in the audience of people that are so powerful. For me, they actually found out that I was going to be a recipient of this award when I was at Super Bowl this year.
Hmm.
So I'm literally, when I get the information, they called, and I'm sitting bawling at a restaurant
Hmm.
because it's just moved me in such a way. I think for if anyone knows in the African American community, the Ebony is the signature of almost winning like the Oscar. It's so important. It's a magazine that we all grew up with, but I think the most powerful part about it is that my parents were both heavy contributors to the community, and this is a specific Community Crusader Award that's given out. I think it's a total of 8 people. So there's different categories for the different
Hmm.
awards, and people that are doing transformative work in their communities. And so that I feel like it's just an opportunity to almost say thank you to my parents that invested so much, not only in me and my siblings, but also to the community and so many young people that were part of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas. And so I share this award with not only them, but so many people that shaped and molded and mentored me to really help me to become the very best person that I could become.
And looking through the list, and you're right. I mean, there are the sports ones, there are business, there are all the different categories. But I mean, from a sports standpoint, if you're a sports fan, uh, well, Mahomes obviously is the best one on there. But there were a number of quarterbacks: Patrick Mahomes, Russell
Mhm.
Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. Lamar Jackson. By the way, just that alone, I'm getting off topic here. To me, is hopefully a sign of where the world has come. Because I remember growing up, you certainly would remember growing up, that an African American quarterback was not a common occurrence. It should have been,
Yeah.
but it wasn't, and it was almost like, oh wait a minute, and and there was no reason for it. And now you would never sit there and say, oh wait a minute, that's an African American quarterback. You would just say, well, that's the best
Mm.
quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So I look at that list and I see like there is progress there, yet how much more progress do we have to make? And I'm not just talking about the sports world, I'm talking about the business world. A highly successful African American woman who's being recognized nationally, how many more opportunities are available for that young African American girl that wants to be the next Thalia Cherry?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost interesting to think that like we're in this moment still of saying first, right?
Yeah.
But somebody has to start, right? And so we could take it and approach it from a perspective of, oh, if you're the first, that should have happened years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me, and one of the reasons why I love sports is that it is such a connector of people and moments in history. And so when you think about sports and just Jackie Robinson's and integrations and all the integrations that have happened in sports, at the same time, if you look historically, the whole entire city or country was moving in a better direction. And so I think that if people understood the honor of sometimes being the first, that although there's sometimes, particularly on the field and industry, there may be some pressures, if handled with grace, that's really going to help to impact generations behind you. And I think that's the most valuable piece that can help really, I think, shift kind of the paradigm, the conversations, but also the paradigm of perspective.
I know I was reading that you have been a mentor to many for a lot of years. So, two-part question on mentorship. What did you take from mentors growing up? How important was that to you? And now, how significant is it for you to pass that on to others?
It's everything. I mean, it's really the fiber of who I am. At a very young age, I think it was instilled repeatedly how important it was to impact community, how important it was to invest into other people. But I had incredible models too, not only my parents. And so there was all the individuals in the kind of circle around them too. They were always invested in community. So, I mean, really at the heartbeat, it's the only thing I really, really know. But it's what really drives me at the same time. So I know at one time when I was pseudo kind of keeping contract, there are roughly like 22 mentees. I still on a weekly basis at least talk to one of them, and now they're in different stages. So many of them were really under my tutelage when they were like 16, 17. So now many of them are having children, getting married, taking on different job opportunities and careers. And they still call for all the advice in relation to that. And I think one of the things that I always held true, and the reason why I think those bonds and relationships are there, is I've just always been authentic and truthful with them, even when they didn't want to hear the truth, or they were seeking just for somebody to kind of almost condone something a direction they shouldn't have gone in. So they would always say I was fair and honest with them. It was interesting. The other day I did an exercise. It was for actually a 21-day challenge, and one of the challenges on day 2 was to write 50 people that have influenced your life. And I thought, actually, when I first got the exercise, I was like, oh, I can write 50 real quick, right? But I really had to think, and I had to think about different segments of my life. And I think people are there for different seasons to help you blossom and grow, but they may not be there for the totality of all those seasons, right? But it was really interesting to see my list. I mean, it was comprised of like relatives, but also comprised of supervisors, also comprised of friends. But I mean, it's a very diverse group of people, I think, that help really shape why that's important to really engage and impact other people.
So when you have that many mentees, and now you're talking about all of the mentors you have, but when you have all those mentees, 22, and it sounds like it's really more than 22 at this point, and you're reaching out on a regular basis, what advice are you giving them as they're potentially walking in your shoes, and they're going on and doing the different things that they're doing, but in these challenging times, ones that you have never experienced, I have never experienced. We've all experienced disruption. We have never in our lifetime gone through something like this. What advice have you imparted on others during this pandemic?
Well, I think, and I see a lot of reports or articles written in relation to this, is really about this has given us a quiet time to really kind of reflect. All of us have looked at, I think, our values or what inspires us or what motivates us, because really we didn't have the distractions that we once had, right? So, like, you have this moment in which you can do that. So, I really encourage all mentees to kind of do that, to really hone in on what those things are. And I think it's given us the opportunity to kind of repurpose who we might be, what we find to be most important, what really our triggers might have been in the past, but how do we really come out of this a better person, and how do we learn from it? So I think it's given lots of moments for those and that clarity. And I would just encourage everybody. I mean, we have this great time and moments to do that, to learn more about ourselves. And so that's what I share. Hopefully, a value for them.
Another comment coming in from Lauren Conaway. Thalia has been such an inspiration to me, and I know Lauren is an inspiration to so many in
Yes.
town as well. So many up and coming women that are out there. Oh, another one just popped in right now from Linda Endicott, who's one of my favorite people in town, and another big influencer in our community. So, Linda, thanks for checking in. I've been meaning to send her a message to see how she's doing. So I'm thinking about you, Linda, if you're still watching right now. I love on your LinkedIn page under experience, it says founder and CEO, Cherry Company, since May 2012. I manage brand business development. And then it says, I am a head dream creator, which I think falls under the innovation category, or maybe just the dreaming and thinking big. Explain that one for me, because I really like the ring to it.
Yeah, I had help with that one from one of our friends, Aaron. So I think it just really falls into our vision of like illuminating the possibilities and helping people to achieve their very best. And so you utilize, I mean, we create a product and it's clothing, but how do we really help transcend people through that? And so in dreaming, I just really hope that anybody that interfaces with me, that I can help them achieve what they value to be the most important and what their strengths are. I believe potential is so untapped in so many of us. Like, there's so much we can achieve. And I think with the right connections and resources and just people that help to elevate that and amplify that for us, that anything is possible. And so that's really about that dreaming and believing. And just for me, another element that's important is my faith. Faith has been really important, more so than any other moment in this time. And even when I talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs in our kind of circles and conversations, it's really about like my faith is really what has sustained me and kept me, I think, grounded in this moment.
I've got one other from the experience page here. Well, yeah, this has Aaron's fingerprints all over it. But, head of concierge satisfaction. But then I wanted to ask you, the last one on here was, and I like their little cherry emojis next to each one too. I just noticed that, making sure our company culture always stays on top. And this one resonates with me because culture is a topic that I talk really before the pandemic. That was my number one topic. Now I've shifted a little bit with the virtual stuff and kind of talking about this moment. But culture is one where it's so important to Dayton Moore, the Royals general manager. And in my discussions with him over the years, he has always said that you never take a day off from culture. Just because you have it built, you focus on it every single day. What are your thoughts on that? How do you not just build but sustain culture?
Right. I For one, I think you really got to hone in on what your culture is, right? First and foremost. And your culture should mirror your values as a company. With that being said, too, I think it's really key and important to hire individuals that really meet and have the similar values. I think that's a process, too. The saying, what's the old saying? Is like, slow to hire, quick to fire. So that's really key and important, and really developing the right team. I think it's a continuum too. So as its culture is infused in who you are, what the business is, and what the brand is that you constantly have to kind of train and develop, even at the leadership level, of what that really means. And it's a constant. So it's not like you hit this peak of, oh, we've hit the culture, or we've now there, we've achieved, we're at that height. But it's really about how do you always, in every thread of the fabric of your business, is that culture related, whether external or internal?
We're going to wrap things up here in a moment, but I had another good question that came in from Mike Meyer Music. I believe I'm going to click on this one. Yes, it is Mike. How do you stay motivated in such a crowded business space when the new flavor of the day is the hot trend? That's an interesting topic, because what you were selling 5 days ago may not be trendy now. I know you talked about fashion, so you certainly have an interest there. How do you stay motivated? How do you navigate the forever changing world?
Um, you really stay connected to people. And people really are the guidance. And for us, even when I speak to the concierge service, it's really around being the best and providing the best service, not only product, to our clientele and our customer base. So no matter if there's a new industry or a new within our crowded space of what product offerings are, people really align with the brand and the values of the company, and that you stay true to that and you're authentic to that, then that actually helps keep you um, growing, developing as a company, but also hearing your customer and client base too, like what is important. And just as we shifted to the mass, that was really important to our base. And so, no matter what industry you're in, most industries are crowded, but what sets people apart or businesses apart is their commitment to, whether that's community or to individuals, to their team, so that they can really kind of impact at a larger scale.
Yeah, and I'll go back to an answer that I always heard from the now late. It's crazy to say it that way. The late David Glass, longtime owner of the Kansas City Royals, who would always say, "It's all about the people. It's all about, you do nothing alone." And this was coming from a guy that was worth $1 billion, whatever it was, and put Walmart to another level. I never ever heard him say "I" or "me" ever. It was always about everyone else, and so I constantly hear his voice in my head. It's about people. It's about people. So you can have the greatest product in the world, but if you don't connect it with the people and make it about them, right? And so that's really the business that you're in, and the successful people are. Final question then. We talked about innovation. We've talked about the pandemic. What does innovation look like in your business? What does your world in your business look like going forward as we kind of quote unquote come out of this, if that's the right way to put it?
Right. Us, innovation is studying the market. So we are informed, always making sure we infuse our own style and approach to that. And then always looking for new opportunities. And during this pandemic, we've actually garnered new contracts, new opportunities, based on us just really keeping on the pulse to the ground and understanding what the customer base and the new direction and what forecasting may be happening around innovation. I think it's also, we want to always expand our portfolio and diversify the things that we can offer, whether that's directly with the product itself or just from our service base. We've also done a lot around creative content for other businesses, which is, I think, a space that we can even expand even further. And so for us, it's really about kind of always, as I mentioned earlier, staying true to who we are, but also creating and looking for new opportunities for the future.
Well, if anyone wants more information, you see the website up there, cherrysportsgear.com. And I thought that you would enjoy this message that just popped up. I think I'm responsible for all her achievements. LOL. Nice interview. So I didn't. I knew there would be some meaning to that one. So
That's one of my brother, the one that's closest to me in age.
okay, so taught you everything.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
there's nothing ever better than the sibling rivalry, and safe to say that the youngest of all of the kids has done very well with herself, and so this has been a lot of fun, and it's also been fun. I could always It's always interesting and fun for me to see all the comments that come in too, because what I've seen, and with social media, word spreads quickly. It'll be, oh, Thala's on this thing right now, and you start getting some of the feeling for those that have supported you or been a part of your life, and all of that. And so I know that that's meaningful. I'm sure to you, but it's fun for me to be able to see that too. So. Again, I'll give a shout out and a thanks to Aaron Folk for connecting us. That to me has been one of the best parts of this time. And you talked about sort of that stillness, that quiet right now, that from my end, selfishly, it's enabled me to make a lot of connections that maybe I would have made, maybe I wouldn't have, and then hopefully that ability to share it with others. So continued success. Congratulations on all of the accolades and the awards. Like I said before, I know that you have a deeper purpose than that, but to be able to have those honors, well deserved, and I'm sure that that's really nice too. So thanks for spending all the time today.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is great. Enjoy it.
All right. Well, let me. So you got cherrysportsgear.com. I want to thank, and again, let's make sure we get the pronunciation right. I did get it right. It's Thalia Cherry. I know. You know what? I'll wrap it up with this. I've interviewed so many athletes over the years that like 2 years later they'd be like, "Oh, by the way, it's pronounced." I'm like, "Well, you could have told me that originally," but I think, like you said, you just become numb to it. It's everybody else around you that gets upset.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. I'm glad that I got it right. I'm glad that Aaron was there to help me get it right. More importantly, I'm glad that you were able to join Rounding the Bases live today. Thalia, thanks and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
All right, so that was a lot of fun to be able to visit with Thalia Cherry. Check them out. A lot of good things still to come. Thanks for everybody for commenting today, too, and jumping in on the show. If you want to get a hold of me, you can do so at joelgoldbergmedia.com. Starting to really do a lot of virtual speaking now. That's picking up, so I'm really excited about that, and that'll continue even once baseball's back, hoping baseball's back in early July. Thanks to my friends over at KC Cattle Company. Check out that website. You will not regret it once you order that Wagyu beef. It's just different. It's at a higher level than anything that I've ever had. Suddenly those burgers, those tacos, they just taste better than whatever we have cooked here before. And those bacon cheeseburger bratwursts, oh my goodness. We had those last weekend. Really good stuff. So take a look at them. And a big thanks to Enterprise Bank and Trust #NoStoppingYou for their partnership. That's going to do it for another episode of Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everyone. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode.